Day 341 of Mueller's investigation, and questions still surrounding just why the FBI's initial inquiry into the Trump campaign was kicked off in the first place. An incredible development. So much for fair, open, and a transparent system of justice. Now, also tonight, James Comey is on the second week of his whirlwind I'm Great book tour, and he now finds himself in big trouble tonight. According to the Office of the Inspector General, the disgraced former FBI director is now under investigation over serious claims of misconduct. We tried to warn him right here on this show. And we're going to break down Comey's misdeeds. And coming up, we have new information on what is the DNC's laughable last-ditch attempt at a lawsuit against the Trump campaign, and the president's responding. Now, we're going to bring you the groundbreaking new diplomatic developments surrounding Korea. We have important economic achievements right here at home that should blow your mind. Nobody else will report them. And then later in the show, you will meet conservative writer Candace Owens. She will weigh in and join us on the left's disgraceful outrage over the public support that she got from Kanye West. All right, a lot to get into in tonight's breaking news opening monologue. All right, we start tonight. House Intel Committee Chairman Devin Nunes just revealed something that should concern every single American watching this program tonight. The FBI's investigation into whether or not the Trump campaign colluded with Russia was started without a single shred. Zero intelligence. I'm not making this up. Take a look.
The counterintelligence investigation uses the tools of our intelligence services that are not supposed to be used on American citizens. So we've long wanted to know, well, what intelligence did you have that actually led to this investigation? So what we found now, after the investigators have reviewed it, is that, in fact, there was no intelligence.
That's right. So the FBI began a serious investigation of an American political campaign unprompted by any intelligence at all? Wow. Now, there's more to this. Listen to what Chairman Nunes went on to tell our own Maria Bartiromo. Take a listen.
We do know that longtime associates of Hillary Clinton, including Sidney Blumenthal and another person named, I think, Corey Scheer, were actively giving information to the State Department that was somehow making its way to the FBI. This is from two people within the State Department who have now publicly come out and said this in, I think, in major news publications. We now know that there was no official intelligence that was used to start this investigation. We know that Sidney Blumenthal and others were pushing information into the State Department. So we're trying to piece all of that together.
Now, this is a deadly serious charge coming from the Intel Committee chairman. And remember, it was just a few days ago that the Freedom Caucus chairman, Mark Meadows, he made a similar claim and even suggested that the Obama administration played a key and vital role in kicking off the investigation into the Trump campaign. You can't make this up. Take a listen.
But we now see that the State Department, and it appears that the White House at the very highest levels, including the president himself, were involved in this whole narrative of investigating Donald Trump. The messages, the text messages that I've had the privilege of reviewing, and some of the other correlating information would strongly suggest that there was not only information given to the White House, but indeed that they were involved in directing some of the actions of the Department of Justice and FBI in the fall of 2016. That's troubling. When you see one president allowing their DOJ to get involved in a political campaign.
So do you still think the Obama White House would never tamper with a politically charged investigation? Think again tonight. And according to a completely underreported part of the recently released Inspector General's report about firing Andrew McCabe, quote, listen to this. McCabe said a high-ranking Obama Justice Department official expressed concerns about FBI agents taking overt steps in the Clinton Foundation investigation during the presidential campaign. Now, listen to what they say. Quote, McCabe told us that the conversation was very dramatic and that he never had a similar confrontation like that call with a high-level department official in his entire FBI career. We got to think about this. Now, remember, this was all happening while Andrew McCabe's boss, James Comey, missed a book tour, was giving Hillary Clinton the white glove treatment during the criminal investigation. We know she broke laws, committed felonies as it relates to the private email server. Now, these two fired career bureaucrats are likely now headed towards a major collision course. This is going to be interesting. You have Andrew McCabe in deep legal trouble over his lack of candor, lying under oath, while serving as the deputy FBI director, number 2, and McCabe is probably going to have to cut some deal. And this may involve turning on that other guy, James Comey. Now, McCabe should have plenty to say. Now, for example, remember when Comey agreed to call the investigation a, quote, matter at the request of then Attorney General Loretta Lynch? And we can't forget James Comey looked the other way, while Clinton obstructed justice by deleting 33,000 subpoenaed emails, acid washing with bleach pit, destroying cell phones and devices with a hammer. By the way, try that at home. Good luck. And maybe most damaging of all, it was the exoneration before investigation. Comey and his team cleared Clinton of all charges months before they actually did the interview of her and 17 other key witnesses. Now, ironically, the initial crime Clinton may have committed and should have been charged with, look at this right up on your screen. Our own Greg Jarrett and others have identified this, 18 U.S.C. 793, mishandling of classified information, is now the very same charge that James Comey is now himself being investigated over. He's hoping he has a James Comey in his life after he, of course, leaked those memos dealing with his meetings with President Trump. Those were not allowed to be leaked. Classified information were in some of them. Now, this weekend, the president tweeted, quote, James Comey's memos are classified. I did not declassify them. They belong to our government. Therefore, he broke the law. And additionally, he totally made up many of the things he said that I said, and he's already a proven liar and a leaker. Where are memos on Clinton, Lynch, and others? Now, according to the Office of Inspector General, Comey is now being probed over whether or not he acted unethically when he leaked those potentially classified memos to his friend. That guy is a Columbia professor. His name is Daniel Richman. And of course, we now know that Richman went on to leak these memos to the press, putting the wheels in motion for the appointment of Robert Mueller as special counsel. Now, gets very interesting. Congressman Jim Jordan, he's shining a light on this unusual relationship between Daniel Richman and the FBI. I had not known this before. Watch this.
The Oversight Committee and the Judiciary Committee interviewed Jim Rubicki. And during that deposition, it was brought out that Daniel Richman, the guy who information was leaked through to the New York Times, had this special status called Special Government Employee Status, where he could sort of come and go in the FBI, which may not mean much, but it seems kind of interesting. The guy that Comey leaks through is a good friend who had this sort of unfettered access into the FBI.
Pretty amazing. And Congressman Jordan also detailed possible deep state collusion between the media and some of the highest ranking officials in the government over the salacious, anti-Trump, untrue, unverified, Clinton bought and paid for phony Russian dossier. Let's take a look at this.
Clapper, I think, is the one who probably went out and leaked it right after that.
You mean the press was working on it, CNN, the dossier?
They had it.
So if you have the cover of, we briefed the president-elect, then they can report it.
Gives it weight, and that's exactly what happened. My guess is, I don't know this for sure, but Clapper's the one who orchestrated this. He's the one who told Comey, you go in, you talk to the president. You're the one staying on. You brief him on the dossier, the salacious, unverified dossier. And then, of course, right then after that, CNN talks about it, prints it, and then BuzzFeed printed the whole thing.
All right, now, this is the same dossier that was used to acquire that FISA warrant against the Trump campaign associates. And remember, they lied to the FISA judges. And remember, they never disclosed who paid for this. Now, make no mistake, this was campaign opposition research, bought and paid for by Clinton, her campaign, funneled through that law firm, Perkins Coie, put together by a foreign agent based on Russian and Russian government lies, and used as evidence to get a warrant during a political campaign against an opposition party, all the while Comey and his cohorts, they never disclosed the true nature of this document, and they lied to the FISA court judge. That is a crime. Which brings us to our next top story. Now, the Democrats' laughable lawsuit against the Trump campaign, WikiLeaks, and Russia. Now, we all know this court-filed conspiracy theory. It is nothing. Please understand that this is a desperate publicity stunt. But breaking tonight, the DNC's brand new lawsuit is now revealing what is almost an unbelievable double standard. All right, so we told you about the anti-Trump dossier. They presented that to the FISA court to get the warrant we've been talking about tonight and nearly every night on this program for the last couple of months. So the dossier that was used to get the warrant that supposedly links Trump to Russia in the most salacious, embarrassing ways that was never verified. In this lawsuit, it is nowhere to be found. It's not even in there. Let's lie to the judge, but let's not lie to the next judge. Okay, I really understand this. So the Democrats, along with the Clinton campaign, were the ones that paid a foreign spy to piece together this document on Russian lies and rumors and so-called Russian intelligence. Now listen to what Chairman Nunes had to say about this totally embarrassing political Hail Mary. Take a look.
We know who colluded with Russians. They don't want to admit that they colluded with Russians, but they hired they hired a law firm that hired Fusion GPS, that hired a British spy that went and colluded with Russians. So I don't understand why they just didn't open up a lawsuit against themselves. They should name themselves and sue themselves so that they can get to the bottom of what do they have on their servers. Why didn't they give those servers to the FBI? This is nothing more, nothing less than a continuation of fundraising off of this scandal.
This is unbelievable. Now, clearly, as many are now noting, this move from the Democratic Party whiffs of nothing but desperation. And even some of the Democratic Party, including Claire McCaskill, they're admitting this lawsuit is merely a distraction. By the way, she's up for re-election. That's probably just for political expediency. Now, meanwhile, President Trump, he announced his response on Twitter. Look what he wrote. Just heard the campaign was sued by the obstructionist Democrats. This can be good news in that we will now counter for the DNC server that they refused to give to the FBI, the Debbie Wasserman Schultz servers, and documents held by the Pakistani mystery man and Clinton emails. By the way, we'll bring you more information as that plays out. Luke Rosiak at the Daily Caller has done amazing work. All right, finally tonight, we're going to end on some good news you'll never hear from anybody in the media. Despite what I describe as the 5 forces that have been working to defeat this president, one to prevent him from getting elected, then to delegitimize him and get him thrown out of office, you have the media, you have the never-Trumpers, you have weak establishment Republicans, you have Democrats, and, of course, the deep state. You know, the Trump agenda keeps seeing massive, major progress both right here and abroad. Now, this includes big progress on the economy. Look at this. 14 states, 14, have now hit record low unemployment numbers, including Alabama, Arkansas, Texas, Hawaii, even California, Wisconsin. Now, meanwhile, the U.S. is also seeing record low unemployment for African Americans and Hispanic Americans. And on the international front, we'll talk more about these developments later. Late last week, North Korea announcing, this is huge, little rocket man, they will suspend all ballistic missile testings, and they plan to close a nuclear testing site. And according to reports tonight, Kim Jong-un also has dropped his demand that all U.S. troops leave the Korean peninsula. They can stay in South Korea. Now, this comes ahead of the president's upcoming meeting with the North Korean dictator. Now, these major groundbreaking developments came as a shock to many in the mainstream media. One fake news CNN reporter literally became speechless. And this is priceless. Take a look.
Kim Jong-un saying North Korea no longer needs any nuclear tests, mid-range and intercontinental ballistic missile tests, and he's saying that the nuclear test site in the northern area near the Chinese border at Punggye-ri has completed its mission, therefore will likely be closed. This is an extraordinarily significant development and, frankly, a huge win for President Trump. I am really almost speechless here at the pace at which North Korea has done this U-turn. And this all started with Donald Trump agreeing to sit down for a summit with Kim Jong-un.
Good news for Trump, good news for the world, makes CNN speechless. That speaks volumes. Now, of course, what we're seeing tonight is just the latest in what is a long list of accomplishments. You can see right there on your screen, but you're likely to never see these things reported in the mainstream media. Now, I have been talking about, and this message of these 5 forces working against the president, these narratives are now dying, especially Trump-Russia collusion, and the president's agenda is working, which is good for the American people. Here's my final word tonight. It's time to put this hatred, this obsessive-compulsive hatred in the media, in the deep state, in the Democratic Party aside. Work for the American people. Work for a more peaceful, prosperous America and the world. Maybe we'll actually get along. Anyway, coming up, just wait until you meet our upcoming guest, Candace Owens. She's joining us later tonight. Hear about the support she is receiving from Kanye West. It is driving liberals nuts, and you'll hear of viciousness against this young woman that will shock your conscience. And also later in the show tonight, I have an answer to the media, which is clearly obsessed with me. Hi, glad you're watching. Joining us with reaction to this monologue, former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, Fox News legal. You're not allowed to make the host laugh. That's so unfair. Greg Jarrett, nationally syndicated radio talk show host.
Sorry.
By the way, it's so great to see.
This is what happens when you invite me in studio.
I know.
Never do that. By the way, walking over here, Officer Boning, B-O-N-I-N-G, said to say hello to you. I said to him, thank you for your service. He said, you the guy on Hannity? I said, yeah. He goes, I'm going over there right now. He goes, tell him I said hi.
We should have brought him in.
Officer Boning.
Well,
much love, officers. Thank you for protecting and serving.
Thank you, sir, for what you do every day. We appreciate it.
So,
go ahead.
Jim Jordan and I were talking this morning about the fact that all these interviews that Comey's done, to my knowledge, Sean, no one's ever said, you found that Hillary lacked the intent to violate the Espionage Act. Where in that particular section does it say intent is required? I haven't heard anybody ask that question. Right. George Clintonopoulos didn't ask it. Jake Tapper didn't.
Oh, George Clintonopoulos.
Oops, my bad. Stephanopoulos. What did I say?
Clintonopoulos.
What did I say? He didn't ask it.
That's why you're successful.
This thing is done, Sean. The end game is it is done. There's enough shade on it thrown by people like you, by people like Greg, by Jonathan Turley, by people
but it's taken a year of only a few of us.
It's done.
Not a lot of us.
I agree.
How ironic is it? And I almost remember the first day we put up 18 USC 793.
I remember when you did that.
And now we have look at all of the criminal referrals last week. McCabe, Lynch, Strzok, Page, Comey, Hillary, and the list goes on.
Right. I mean, the great irony here is that Comey appears to have done what he cleared Hillary Clinton for. And by the way, 793, people don't understand, Comey didn't understand the law, which tells me he's not much of a lawyer. 793 was amended by Congress to remove the intent requirement. Comey didn't understand that. It's simply gross negligence. And extremely careless is a synonymous term. So Hillary Clinton clearly violated the law. And if Comey took with him out of the FBI building 4 of 7 documents that are classified,
by the way,
he committed a crime.
We know he did it.
Yes, but we don't know what parts were redacted. So that's the big question.
So if it was redacted, that would help him.
Yes, but something tips me off here. The FBI went to the offices of Daniel Richman, whom Comey leaked the memos to, to seize material and contain the leak. So that tells me that the FBI is of the opinion that he leaked classified information. Remember, it's the content, not the markings, that dictate classification.
Let me go to Sean. The president has basically not had a single free day without this hanging over his head. And still the accomplishments are massive.
Right.
Who would have ever thought little Rocket Man is now willing to capitulate? China, we're going to have a trade war. China gave in on everything. 14 states, the lowest unemployment level ever. African Americans, Hispanic Americans, lowest unemployment records in history. And never does anybody in the media talk about it. You were there. Bring us inside how difficult it is to compartmentalize all of this.
Well, it's not easy. I mean, the truth is that anytime you were on a roll of sorts, you could almost count down to sort of one of these salacious palace intrigue stories or something that would take us off message. But the reality is that I tell people this now that I travel around the country. Take away the smoke and the tweets and everything else and focus on the accomplishments for a minute. Whether it's foreign policy or domestic policy, whether it's how many people are going to work, how we're doing in terms of trade, all of those metrics that people judge it by. And at the end of the day, I think it's a rounding success. And that's what I think, to your point, you don't hear enough about. People want to talk about what could have happened, what might happen, speculate a lot. But when we actually get down to talking about what is happening, what has changed, I think the president has been extremely effective at following through on exactly what he said he was going to do as a candidate. And the proof is in the pudding now. So you talk about North Korea, and the reaction is all over. I mean, how many people thought they mocked Trump and said, "Oh, he's calling him names and he's doing this," and now we've got a summit and the potential denuclearization of that continent, which is historic.
Of the entire peninsula.
They gave President Obama. Right, they gave President Obama an award 8 months into office, and this is what actual results look like, Bill.
Winning.
Yeah, exactly.
Hashtag winning.
You guys are both lawyers.
Are you tired?
How much trouble are all these deep state actors in?
Some of them are in serious trouble. The big target, of course, is Donald Trump, and in my opinion, he's not in any trouble. I think the end game will be that James Comey will be in trouble. I think the Mueller report will come back with no collusion. I think
but how they write it's going to be interesting. They might write it.
It'll be interesting. It doesn't matter. In the unlikely event, Sean, that the Democrats take control of the House and they try to impeach President Trump, I think there'll be 20 or 30 Democrats that realize it's so stupid, we're not going to do that. This is trivial. The next time a Democrat gets in, they'll do that to us. And in the unlikely event that I'm wrong, it goes to the Senate. In the history of this country, a senator has never voted throw out of office a president of his own party. Never.
Much trouble.
So he's home free.
I think they're in a lot of trouble.
Sean,
and for example, today or yesterday, when we learned what Devin Nunes had discovered, not only was there no probable cause evidence for a criminal investigation of Trump, Comey had tried to be clever to conduct a counterintelligence probe. Well, you have to have intelligence for that, but of course it's always secret. Devin Nunes has uncovered the secret and discovered there wasn't any evidence to justify that.
Let me give Sean the last word tonight. Sean.
I was going to say, I mean, Larry's right. If they've got to be careful what they do. This DNC lawsuit is another fake, phony attempt to raise money. They are setting an awful bad precedent that's going to come back to bite them.
Right. All right, guys. Good to see you in studio. Good to see you. Thank you, my friend.
All right.
And to that officer, thank you. All right. A busy news night. Trace Gallagher updates us on the health of George H.W. Bush. He's been hospitalized, a horrific incident in Toronto, and much more. Straight ahead. All right, we're following two big stories tonight involving George H.W. Bush's health and the deadly van crash in Toronto. Joining us now from our West Coast newsroom, Fox News, is Trace Gallagher. Trace, two sad stories. We're praying for the former president and, of course, these people in Toronto.
Yeah, we are indeed, Sean. The former president was admitted to Houston Methodist Hospital yesterday morning, just hours after former First Lady Barbara Bush was laid to rest. The 93-year-old Bush is suffering a blood infection, but a family spokesman says tonight that Mr. Bush is, quote, responding to treatments and appears to be recovering. This is the fifth time in the last 6 years the elder Bush has been hospitalized, including a year ago this month where he spent 2 weeks in the hospital for pneumonia. On Friday, during the public viewing of Barbara Bush's casket, the 41st president greeted some 2,500 people who came to pay their respects. Meantime, in Toronto, witnesses say a van traveling at 30 to 35 miles per hour on the walkways of Yonge Street, one of the busiest avenues in the city, appeared to be swerving back and forth, trying to kill as many people as possible. And tonight, the death toll has been raised to 10, with 15 others injured, some of them critically. Toronto police say the attack was deliberate, but are not yet calling it terrorism. And they have identified the suspect as 25-year-old Alec Manassian, who lives 15 miles outside of Toronto. Manassian was arrested after appearing to wave a weapon at police. Still no word on motive, but the killing certainly follows a recent pattern of attacks around the world that involved rented vans, including the attack on bike riders last Halloween in Lower Manhattan, the 2016 attack on the London Bridge, and 2017 van attack on Las Ramblas shopping center in Barcelona. ISIS has called on followers to steal or rent vans and use them to attack civilians.
All right, Trace, in our West Coast Bureau tonight, thank you. And joining us with more reaction to my opening monologue from the Hill, Joe Concha, Fox News national security analyst, former deputy assistant to the president, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. Dr. Gorka, the Justice Department now investigating Comey. Criminal referrals on every top figure, Lynch, on Hillary herself, on Comey, on McCabe, on Strzok, on Page. Then the IG referral, criminal referral, as it relates to McCabe. All that we have talked about is now happening. Everything the media has talked about has been wrong.
Yes, absolutely. For the last 14 months. Let's just tie it all together. The jigsaw puzzle must be made into a full picture. We now know Andy McCarthy's hypothesis is absolutely sound. The work of Sarah Carter, John Solomon, our own Fox, Catherine Herridge. It is clear the Obama administration wanted Hillary to win. She was protected by the highest echelons of the DOJ and the FBI. Why? Because her felonious use of a private server to send classified information on implicated the president himself. We know President Obama, under a pseudonym, contacted her and sent sensitive information on that private homebrew server, which meant if she was prosecuted, guess who has to be prosecuted as well? President Obama. That is why they perverted the course of justice, and everything should be renamed, not FISA-gate, not Surveillance Gate. It must be renamed tonight, Sean, Obama Gate.
Deep State Gate, Obama Gate, whatever you want. Joe, you follow the media. You follow their coverage. I'm not ever expecting a retraction, an apology, but the level of breathless hysteria and reporting, especially on the cable networks, not Fox, and in the Washington Post and the New York Times, anonymous sources, fake news, debunk stories, conspiracy theories. This now represents news in America?
The New York Times, Sean, the biggest complaint among readers, and this has been going on for years and years, is the use of anonymous sources, the utter reliance on them, because obviously we don't know what motive those sources have. Usually it's probably a nefarious one if they want to get these things out. They're not just innocent whistleblowers. They're looking to push a narrative to hurt people in positions of power, and we've seen that over and over again. So, look, Devin Nunes, who is obviously the head of the Intelligence Committee in the House. He has been dismissed by the media for the most part. He's been called a lackey. And then you look at the other side, his counterpart, Adam Schiff. You know how many interviews Adam Schiff has done? And I'm not talking print interviews or online. I'm talking television broadcast interviews he's done since the president took office. 240. So if you need to know, if the media is picking a side, they're giving Adam Schiff a huge stage on an almost daily basis, while Nunes is seen as, well, that's the guy who's just trying to support Trump, trying to push a false narrative. I think that's all the evidence you need, Sean.
You know, and it is interesting, Dr. Gorka, and you mentioned there's a group of us. You're included in that group, and Sarah and Greg and Larry, and I can't mention everybody. And the bottom line is, this is the biggest abuse of power we've ever seen in this country's history, the biggest corruption case in history. I've never seen, you know, unmasking, leaking, surveillance, FISA abuse, exonerations before investigations, felonies just not even being prosecuted. Every one of these stories is unbelievable.
We've had problems. We've had scandals in the past. You go back to the 60s and the 70s especially. There's a reason we had the Church and Pike commissions. We had COINTELPRO, which was a scandal for the FBI. But guess what, Sean? In almost every case, it was the good guys overstepping the mark. There were bad people, there were radicals, there were arsonists, there were terrorists like the Weathermen Underground, and they were overzealous in the application of intelligence tools. Sean, in this case, it's not going after bad guys, it's going after your your opponent in a democratic election. It's going after somebody you politically disagree with and using the intelligence community and
political differences.
Right. And that's a massive scandal for the Republic.
Last word, Joe.
Well, we talk about the bias of omission a lot, Sean. That's the worst kind of bias you could have. And you talked before about not covering some of the more positive aspects of what this administration is accomplishing. And look, I'm not going to put that out there as some sort of cheerleader. I look at Pew Research right after the election, and here's what they said, the top 3 issues that voters voted on. 84% said the economy and jobs, 80% terrorism, ISIS in this case, obviously, 75% foreign policy. So we look at those 3 issues, and foreign policy, obviously, we have to look at North Korea in those regards. The president is doing quite well on the issues that matter most to people, yet those are the issues that get the least reporting by our media because we're looking too much at Russia and Stormy Daniels and things that people don't care about as much as our media in the bubble thinks they do.
All right, guys, thank you both for being with us. When we come back, huge news about how the president's peace through strength approach with Little Rocket Man is working. That, and wait till you meet another guest tonight. Major breaking news with the stunning announcement that North Korea will suspend their nuclear and long-range missile testing and will close a major nuclear test site. There is no doubt a huge win for the peace through strength policies of the president and his administration. And we're guessing that liberals in the mainstream media are a little bit red-faced right about now. Remember when they predicted that Donald Trump was going to lead all of us to a nuclear war with North Korea?
The idea of a nuclear showdown with North Korea keeps you up at night? I would recommend deleting your Twitter app.
He is not merely being cavalier with a threat about nuclear war. He's being cavalier in a way that makes him seem demented.
These are the messages from a person who is not well, from a leader who is not fit for office.
President Trump is goading Kim Jong-un to test a nuclear missile again, to prove its reliability, to show him wrong. And fundamentally, I think it comes across as two kindergartners who are jostling each other, except that each has nuclear weapons.
Well, here's too late after 100,000 Americans die.
After a nuclear holocaust.
Or after a million die in Seattle.
And that's where we are. This is not an exaggeration.
Trump's comments about nuclear weapons have experts worried he could literally inadvertently trigger a catastrophe.
Media geniuses. Now, yesterday, President Trump responded to all these naysayers. He tweeted out, quote, "Funny how all the pundits that couldn't come close to making a deal on North Korea are now all over the place telling me how to make a deal." Now, today, Defense Secretary Mattis had this to say about the potential summit between the president and Kim Jong-un, which is slated for late May or early June. Take a look.
Now, I think there's a lot of reasons for optimism that the negotiations will be fruitful, and we'll see.
Here with reaction, retired CIA senior intelligence officer and Sonoran Policy Group Vice President Daniel Hoffman. We haven't had you in studio. It's an honor to see you. Thank you.
Good to be here. Thank you.
30 years serving the country?
Yeah, went by like the blink of an eye, though, honestly. Yeah. I miss it these days, especially.
All over the world.
Yeah, all over
and you're an expert in Russia. You've been lived in Pakistan.
And Iraq as well, yes.
Unbelievable. I cannot, unless Donald Trump backed up cargo planes full of $150 billion in cash or tried to bribe Kim Jong-un like Kim Jong-il was bribed, his father, liberals will never like him. Oh, don't make them mad. They're going to hate us. But strength works every time.
Yeah, I think some of those pundits forgot the lessons we learned from Ronald Reagan, who was equally as hard on the Soviet Union.
Evil empire.
Called him the evil empire, made some of the most eloquent speeches. We remember the tear down the wall, Mr. Gorbachev speech at Brandenburg Gate. And at the same time was negotiating arms control agreements. And it was that determination that he had and his ability to show our strength, which led to the potential for some negotiations. I think we're seeing the same strategy right now play out quite well.
You know, it is amazing because nobody saw it coming. And why do you think the reversal, the economic sanctions, had that big an impact? I mean, look at Kim Jong-un's desire just to get into the Olympics last minute.
So I think a couple of things. I think for sure the sanctions are stinging North Korea. But I also think the president's direct outreach to Kim Jong-un matters a lot because the Chinese would like to be involved, and they're out right now. And I think the president caught everybody a little bit off guard. He also mounted this incredible, extraordinary, tactical diplomatic initiative, completely shielded from the public view, avoiding any collateral damage that public scrutiny might have caused until the time was right for all of us to know what Mike Pompeo was really doing over Easter weekend.
I've always liked Mike Pompeo. Mike, he was #1 at West Point. This guy is a smart man. And thank God he'll become the next Secretary of State. I want to ask you, we also got the concessions from China, the Chinese president, as it relates to intellectual property rights and trade. I want to ask you, you had written a piece about Brennan, former CIA director. What about him?
Well, my concern about John Brennan was some of the tweets that he made regarding the president and his comments on Morning Joe a couple of weeks back where he...
Liberal Joe. Like, we don't call it Morning, Liberal Joe show.
Okay, I got to get with the Hannity program.
The Hannity lingo.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So he was insinuating, he said he was speculating that Vladimir Putin could blackmail President Trump. And that is risking a lot of collateral damage to our national security. He should be taking the Hippocratic Oath, maybe of exercising his freedom of speech, although I think personally it's unseemly for someone involved in...
It really is.
In in intelligence to come back and get into partisan politics that way, but then do no harm to our national security while you're exercising that right.
Isn't it amazing that the people that are most angry about the things that have come out about the FBI and the Justice Department and FISA and all these things and unmasking and leaking intelligence, the people that I know that are angriest are the people in the intel community that protect us every day, and the FBI, those rank and file guys that protect us every day, and all of whom put their lives on the line. They are apoplectic, and a lot of the information coming out is because of their bravery and honesty.
I think there's some frustration when down in the trenches you see things really clearly, and you're briefing up to your director, who in turn is briefing the president. And sometimes politicians in the previous administration I saw like to start with the answer and then kind of twist the information to fit their solution. And from the perspective of somebody who was in the trenches and saw really what the threats were to our national security, and you look at Syria and Iraq.
If we
and
saw
South
them, how
Asia,
scared would the average American be? It would freak most people out. Probably.
Pick one. Look, we know the results of what happened in Syria, where ISIS had a lot of geographic space, and Iraq, because we retreated from those places. We know that in South Asia, the president completely swiveled with his policy on retaining our troops in Afghanistan when the Obama administration wanted to remove them.
Listen, you're a true patriot and hero.
Thank you.
Honor to have you in studio.
Thank you.
For your
My honor, too.
You've been great.
Thank you.
Liberals have been vicious, I mean vicious, attacking conservative Candace Owens. Now, Kanye West has praised her on Twitter. She is here tonight to exclusively respond. That's next. All right, the left's attempt to shut down and just demonize conservatives in this country is ramping up again. This time, they're attacking African-American conservative commentator Candace Owens for taking on Black Lives Matter protesters during an event at UCLA. Take a look.
What is happening right now in the black community, you're going to hear it in this room first. There is an ideological civil war happening. Black people that are focused on their past and shouting about slavery, and black people that are focused on their futures. Victim mentality is not cool. I don't know why people like being oppressed. It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard. I love oppression. We're oppressed. 400 years of slavery, Jim Crow, which, by the way, none of you guys lived through. Your grandparents did, and it's embarrassing that you utilize their history. You utilize their history, and you come in here with more emotion than they ever had when they were living through it. More emotion than they ever had when they were living through it. It's embarrassing. You're not living through anything right now. You're overly privileged Americans.
And on Saturday, Kanye West praised Owens on Twitter, and he wrote this, quote, "I love the way Candace Owens thinks, but not everyone of Owens is a fan with compliments and support Kanye West support." Look at what Tom Arnold went on a sexist, brutal, vicious, hateful, racist tirade on Twitter. Here's just some of what he tweeted. Aside from being an insane alt-right race pimp, Candace Owens thinks Donald Trump is literally the Messiah, not you, at Kanye West. So you might want to reconsider. He also wrote, at Real Candace, good luck glomming on to Kanye West. His family already told him you were a phony and a fraud, a former Democratic bad actress. But I don't even want to talk about this anymore. Candace now joins us here. You are a total star. I watched that tape. I am so impressed and so happy for you that you have this gift. But I am so sad for you also that you have to take on those vicious attacks like that.
Thank you so much, first of all, for the compliment. It means a lot coming from you. And let me tell you, do not be sad for me. This is exactly what I wanted. This is exactly what I intended to happen, because I knew exactly what I was going up against. When you go up against the left, this is what they do. They try to essentially say that you are not allowed to think differently. I say it all the time. Blacks are ideological slaves and pawns to the Democratic Party.
Try and invest in real estate. If you don't put your money on under a mattress, believe me, I know what you mean. It's not the same, though. How I watched Kanye West, I was so happy that he did that, because that's what I always thought. Everybody should embrace this freedom. Why do so many have a problem with this?
It's not a problem with it. You have to think about what the left has done successfully. They've hijacked our education. They've hijacked our families via LBJ and the Great Society Act, taking away black fathers so that black youth would start to look at hip-hop culture and NBA and NFL athletes for the right direction. This is why they're constantly utilizing Hollywood, and there's developed this underground system of conservative thinkers in Hollywood for fear of losing their jobs. Kanye West is just the first person that's brave enough to come out swinging against them and saying that he has a right to think according to how he would like to.
I really thought, honestly, it was so refreshing that he did that, and I was happy for you. You know, a very dear friend of mine, Deneen Borelli, she's been a guest on this program often. She wrote a best-selling book, Blacklash. The first thing she writes in the book is Google my name. And because she happens to be a black American who is conservative, the things that come up are the most vicious. Why? Why do you think that is?
Well, I think that the reason is because politics is downstream from culture. And if they lose the culture war, they lose absolutely everything they have. They cannot afford to have black people thinking differently. If we move the black vote even 5%, the Democratic Party is absolutely finished. So it's essentially a house of cards that they've been building. When you get black icons like Kanye West, you get...
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
On.
No, finish your thought.
Or you get black stars to speak out against them, they're in serious trouble.
Look at under President Trump, black and Hispanic unemployment is at the lowest level it's ever been at. 14 states have record low unemployment numbers. After 8 years of President Obama, 13 million more Americans were on food stamps, 8 million more were in poverty. I said that every night. Do you think this is going to change? Because the Democrats, every year, every election year, they play the race card. Republicans don't want to count you in the census, the James Byrd ad, and so on and so forth. Do you think this changes? Is there a cultural shift based on results coming?
100% there's going to be a cultural shift. And you mentioned the Black Caucus, which stood for more food stamps when Obama announced it, but sat when Trump announced black unemployment. That is disgusting, okay? And that is because they work for leftists. It has been infected. It is a swamp. And I'm telling you right now, we are on the brink of an ideological revolution, and the black community is going to start waking up. And I'm so happy that I get to play a part in this.
I got to tell you, I admire you so much. You are a force of light and a star, and I am going to really enjoy watching your career trajectory just soar. And I wish you all God's grace and success in the future. Thank you so much for being with us. And thank you, Kanye, for what he did for you, too.
Thank you so much.
When we come back, the media, they can't stop talking about me. All about me. I, number one, oh, my, me, my. We'll play the video. It's actually now becoming funny. The liberal media, they can't stop talking about me. They're obsessed. Watch.
Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity.
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 Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity. 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 Hannity.
Hannity.
Sean Hannity.
Mr. Hannity.
Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity. Sean Hannity.
Mr. Hannity.
Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity.
Sean Hannity.
Hannity. Hannity.
Hannity.
Hannity. Hannity.
It's truly unbelievable. All right. Now, the answer to every report about me from this weekend can be found on my website, Hannity.com. So for all of you, my real friends that love me so much in the fake news media, because we've exposed you for who you are, just go there for the truth, Hannity.com. Okay? All right. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have left this evening. This show will always be fair and balanced. We are not the destroy Trump media. We never will be. Let not your heart be troubled. One of my favorite biblical quote. Laura Ingraham is live in Washington.